Howdy, y'all. It's Dale
And Chuck.
from Old Southern Kitchen and Garden, and we wanted to talk to you about our year in review. So I have my list, and let's get started. Okay, y'all, so we wanted to discuss with you, as you know from watching the channel, this was our first year in gardening. Yes, we cooked a lot, and we've always cooked, and he's a great chef, but the point of the channel was sharing recipes with y'all and sharing gardening, which we, of course, did not know exactly what we were doing, but we've learned a lot of things in the year, and we want to share those with you. Whether you're a beginner gardener, which take note, and we do have a playlist of beginner gardening videos, or whether you're an expert. And feel free, if you're an expert, to let us know some tips and tricks to our problems. And anything else before we get to the list, Chuck?
No, we're definitely beginner gardeners. And it was an interesting season because we just started on the wrong year with the weather down here in the south.
Yeah, but with Chuck saying that, I do have to say, and you can agree or disagree, but for our first year in gardening, we did super awesome.
Yeah, we really did.
There were some issues that were our fault and some issues that were not our fault, but overall, we were pleasantly happy and surprised with the amount of stuff we got.
We learned a lot, which is really what the first year should be about.
Yes, so we will start our list with the good this year. Part of growing a garden is getting to experience and taste things that you can't find in a supermarket or a local grocery store. And I discovered this year my favorite tomato is the Super Sweet 100s. They were like candy. I would literally stand out there in the yard eating them nonstop while watering all the plants and doing all that stuff.
And when it says Super Sweet 100, you will literally get hundreds of small cherry tomatoes.
Yes, you will. So what was your favorite this year?
The Pink Lady.
Pink Girl.
Pink Girl.
He liked the Pink Girl.
Oh, that was such a good tomato. It has a good meaty flesh with a sweet flavor with the back note of traditional tomato. Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yes, we also discovered several other kinds that we liked this year. We loved the Silvery Fir Tree tomato.
The patio tomato, and that's a great tomato if you're living in an apartment or have limited space. The plant gets literally about this tall, but you will get a lot of really good cherry tomatoes off of it.
It is small but productive. Chuck also liked the yellow pear tomato.
Our father-in-law, my father-in-law, his father, really loved those every time we bring them over. And once again, you get hundreds of tomatoes off of it. They're small yellow tomatoes that are the shape of a pear. Really good, not acidic. It's a great tomato.
Yes, taking a break from the tomatoes temporarily, green onions. We have so many still green onions growing like crazy, which is great because we use lots of green onions in everything that we cook. And my mom comes over from next door and is always out there clipping green onions for stuff she cooks. So the green onions did survive the horrible hot summer we had. And heck, some of them I think were started right when we planted our very first thing, which was garlic, before we started this channel.
Last October.
A little more than a year ago. And they survived that freeze we had. They survived the hot summer. Basically, green onions will survive anything. And the other thing that we had no problem growing, I will let Chuck tell you the name of it because I always call it Mucilex, but it's not.
It's Mucilin spinach lettuce. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's a really good hearty lettuce, and we had a lot of it.
Yeah. So
The garlic actually did extremely well too.
the garlic did really well too. That our very first thing we ever planted. So there were, I'm sure, some other good things that we're forgetting about right now. But let's move.
But they did have a few peppers that we're forgetting
Yes.
about. We did red cayenne and purple cayenne peppers that were really. We got a lot of them. I actually froze a bunch so that we can dry them out later and make powders out of them.
And lots of banana peppers too. And when I was saying that we were blessed or lucky or whatever to have such a great first year, we gave away bags of tomatoes and bags of peppers. And finally it got to the point that people were like, no more tomatoes and no more peppers.
We actually have about 18-gallon Ziploc bags of tomatoes in the freezer now.
That's where I was going. In our deep freeze, there are gallon-sized bags full of tomatoes and peppers. And a little bit of a backstory that I know y'all have heard in a previous video. The reason we started doing gardening was the beginning of last year. We wanted a hobby to do together, so we started doing canning. Well, after having success in canning and having a bunch of people like the stuff we made and requested and asked for jars of it, we were like, hey, why don't we just try doing a garden? That way we'll have a lot of this stuff we're canning and we won't have to go to the store to buy it. So canning is what led us to gardening. So now that we're done with kind of the good, we're going to move on to what I've titled the bad or the bland. What we consider both bland, we are in agreement with this, was all dark tomatoes, be it purple tomatoes, black tomatoes, and the blueberry tomatoes.
Which is bad because we were really excited about growing them because everyone was talking about how wonderful they are. It's just not a taste that we were acclimated to. We didn't really like them all that much.
Now, with that being said, the blueberry tomatoes, I didn't mind the taste of them. He didn't exactly love them, but I didn't hate them. I thought they were good tomatoes. The problem with the black and the purple ones were that they were harder to grow. And when they did grow, you were just kind of like, this is what all the trouble was about? Yeah, no.
And I mean, that could have been because of the heat and everything, that they weren't getting enough water. The taste could be totally different if we try one this year.
And we still have some seeds, so we
Yeah.
will try some more this year. I know a tomato that Chuck was disappointed in because it's a Louisiana tomato, so we expected so much more of it, was he really didn't love the Jubilee tomato.
It's more work than it was, which once again could have been because of the heat, but we had 6 tomato plants planted and got 3 tomatoes the entire summer, and they weren't all that great.
My biggest disappointment was those damn evil olive tomatoes. And I've said that in several videos, those damn evil olive tomatoes.
Which
Yes.
I actually do want to try to grow them again because they say they're not the best tomato to eat, but to create a green salsa with, they're amazing. So that's one we might actually give a try again so we can do a canning video for salsa.
My problem with the evil olive tomatoes, yes, they look cool. They look great. And that's the reason I picked the package. Like I've said before, a kid, I base my tomato choices off what the package looks like and stuff. And with the evil olive tomatoes, we used almost an entire package trying to get them to grow. They would start, come up like, a few inches tall, and then they just die. And like every one of them. And we thought, well, we're not killing everything else, so we're doing the same thing with these as all these other tomatoes, so maybe it was a seed issue or a seed problem.
The only way we can actually get them to grow was to direct seed them into bags.
Yes. And
That's the only way they would grow, and it was the last 6 seeds we had.
yes, that's what I was about to say. We did not until into summer, not like spring and all that stuff, finally get a few of the evil olive plants to grow. And then when they did grow, it was kind of like, they're not that great, but like Chuck said, they're not meant to be fresh eating tomatoes. They are meant to be used in kind of sauces and stuff like that. So it was like, on top of all the trouble they caused, and then popping one in your mouth and being like, no. So, yeah, those damn evil olive tomatoes. So I think that's about all we have on our bad/bland list. And now we want to move on to the issues we had. Now, granted, some of these issues were not in our control. It was Mother Nature, it was the summer, it was all that stuff. But quite a few of these issues are because I'm hard-headed. I knew the things that I was supposed to do. I watched enough of your videos and stuff like that, a lot of YouTube videos, and learned this stuff and took notes and had it right here, in my phone of things that you should do. But I'm hard-headed. I thought I didn't have to do this, or I didn't really need to do this. But let's go, first of all, with the one thing that was not our fault: triple degree temperature for over 3 months in a row. Over 3 months in a row, we were
with no rain.
Yes, we were over 100 degrees.
We had so little rain and so much heat that the river we live on is shut down, and they're saying it might be 2 years till we get enough moisture to be able to open it up to boats again.
So, of course, we moved here to a river, and then they're like, well, close down the river. Those boys just moved onto it. So, you know.
It was crazy. Most days were 110 or above. It was total madness.
Yes. Another issue we had that was not our fault was blossom end rot. Now, we honestly really only suffered this with one type of tomato, and it was the Roma tomatoes. Every Roma tomato grew big and halfway beautiful on the top portion, but the bottom had blossom end rot. And we were like, we're doing, again, same thing with these tomatoes that we do with all others, but these are the only ones that didn't get blossom end rot. Now, with that being said about the Roma tomatoes, we then got LA Roma tomatoes, and we started growing those. No blossom end rot. So Roma,
They really are a delicious tomato. I can't wait to stew some down.
the Roma tomatoes, we had blossom end rot. LA Romas, no blossom end rot.
We literally had thousands, probably a couple hundred Roma tomatoes, and out of that we got to eat one.
Yes. Let's see. I think that's everything on my list. Oh, other than the damn birds. But the birds will not be an issue now. Where we lived before, you've heard me mention, was in the middle of a cow field. So there was no shade, not one shade tree. And that's also with those triple degree temperatures, made it even worse, or whatever. But the only thing out there around us, other than cows and horses, were crows. Them crows took every strawberry, blueberry, blackberry. They really didn't bother the tomatoes that much.
No, they didn't.
But
once they got to that lemon tree, the war was on.
yes, they like their fruit and their citrus. So let's see. Other than the birds, I'm trying to look and see anything else. Oh, there were two other things that were kind of not really our control, but, especially for first-time gardeners. The tomato hornworms wiped out our entire planting of potatoes and ginger.
Army worms.
Army worms. Okay.
Yeah,
Some kind of weirdo worm.
The army worms did totally kill the ginger. We had potatoes that were growing beautiful. Overnight, they ate every plant. So getting track on how to get rid of those will be on our to-do list this year.
Yes.
Last year, we just fought the war and kept crushing them all year long.
And while we're on potatoes, I will say I did a little video of this past year of 3 different ways that you're supposed to start potatoes, 3 different methods. So we learned the method that worked for us. You may have, luck with soaking your potatoes in the water with the toothpicks, holding it out of the water. or you may have it with cutting the potato in half and laying it on the plate of water. Neither of those worked for us. All that did was get nasty bugs in the house flying around nonstop, a horrible
Fruit flies
stinking
everywhere.
smell. But the one of just when the potatoes get eyes, cutting them, putting them in, basically planting them then was the thing that worked for us.
And they were beautiful.
Yeah,
Till the worms came along.
till them damn worms. So I think that's everything on my list that's kind of not our fault. So now I can get to what is our fault. Okay?
Well, no, the peppermint wasn't our fault either.
Oh, the peppermint was not.
Yeah.
We had almost 10 different types of peppermint, all kind of crazy peppermints. And if y'all watch Down Home Southern Backyard with Chad over there, Chad will tell you.
Home backyard gardening.
Yes, that way. I can't read a list, say his name, and all this stuff. Chad. Go to the Chad channel. But Chad will talk to you all the time about mint and stuff like that, and how it's, I think, the bane of his existence, because once you plant some, it grows and takes over everywhere. I did not have this problem, and I told Chad, just make it hot in your yard, because those triple degree temperatures killed every mint we had, every kind, every variety, every one of them died. So I don't have any mint left. So yeah, that kind of wasn't, our fault with the heat and the mint. But back to what was our fault. Number one, starting seeds too early. We started seeds January 1st.
But in our defense, we watched hundreds of videos and went to every site they had, went to the Louisiana agriculture site, and they say, this is when you need to start your seeds. So we did.
Well, I'm going to talk about them and their start dates too, because that wasn't the only thing that was wrong. But yes, our seeds grew. Don't get me wrong, they grew, and they were nice plants. But when you start them on January 1st, and we couldn't move them outside till April, 4 months later, they ended up dying inside before they ever even got outside to die. So we will not be starting seeds on January 1st anymore. It's way too early for us. But if it works for you and everyone else, go for it.
Which the seed starting worked at the end fine, but we found that direct sowing, once it's a little warmer, they grew faster, they were good plants, sturdy plants, and they produced.
Yep.
So we might try both ways this year.
The next thing, due to hard-headedness, not mulching. We've seen 100 videos that said mulch, and we didn't do it. Now, we were doing mostly container gardening because we knew we were hopefully at some point going to be moving, and y'all saw that everything we grew was in containers, grow bags, crates, all that stuff. So I really didn't think that in that type of growing method, mulching was important. But I also wasn't expecting triple degree temperatures every day. And I would literally water in the morning. And by the time I got home from work in the afternoon, it was so dry and just dead. I would have dead-ish. I would have to water again. So we did learn that there's a reason for mulching. It not only protects the top layer of your soil, but it traps in moisture underneath, and maybe even with 110 degree temperatures, the plants wouldn't have had to have been watered twice, a day. Yeah. And they wouldn't have dried out so fast and looked so dead. The next thing that this kind of leads into is grow bags and container gardening. You do have to water them more. You do have to give them, the fertilizer and the plant foods and the nutrients more, because when you're watering them, all that stuff is running out the bottom of your grow bag or your pot or whatever.
Yeah.
So they will need to be watered more for you new people out there. They will need to be fertilized more. Anything else about the growing in containers or pots? just specifically to pot growing? Or?
Yeah, no, we also had ours on a concrete base, which I think produced heat and
What?
evaporated some of the water also.
That probably did, help with the heat, but no, knowing this for you new people out there that are going to try with grow bags, you need grow bags on a hard base. If you put them on the ground, the stuff will grow through the ground and the grass will grow up through your thing. Even though it's not supposed to, those roots will come out of that bag and go down.
Yeah, literally when we were moving to the new house and transferring the bags over, there were roots all over the concrete.
And I think the last thing that stands out on my mind as far as, knowing I should have did it, but I didn't do it, was staking your tomatoes and your pepper plants. However you're going to do it, be it a tomato cage, be it a stake, be it trellising, be it, Florida weave. Start that kind of from the beginning, because once they start getting growing and putting off the branches and putting on the tomatoes and all that stuff, it is much more difficult to do it. And if you do not do it, the fruit, excuse me, will weigh your tomato plant down. It will snap your tomato plant in half, and then you've done all this work and it's done. It's going to die now. And the wind also. The wind, especially for us being out in the middle of, pastures and fields, there was no protection from the wind, and the wind blowing around will snap your non-staked tomato plant, pepper plant, any kind of plant. So
Now, we had a problem with staking all year because no matter how deep you get it into the bag, it would fall over. So if you're doing grow bags, I know a lot of people hate tomato stakes, but it stayed in the grow bag better and gave more protection to the plant.
yes.
The stakes would just take the entire plant and uproot it when the wind would come.
And we discussed basically the Roma tomato versus LA Roma tomato with the blossom end rot. We discussed our issues with the Iguala tomatoes. The last thing I have to say that we also had issues with was the bok choy and the broccoli bolting. We first planted bok choy back in the spring when it was still cool here in Louisiana, and as soon as it grew up out the ground, immediately bolted. So we thought, okay, maybe this is just something down here that we can't grow in the spring because our spring is hotter than other people's springs. So I think it was October, after temperatures have kind of cooled down, I planted more
The baby bok
more
choy.
baby bok choy, and I planted broccoli rapini. Same thing. As soon as they grew up, which I planted them in October, they didn't start growing and popping up until November-ish, almost near December, immediately bolting, both of them. So me, again, being hard-headed, was like, okay, I've tried twice with this baby bok choy. I'm giving it one more try, and I'm going to try again with the broccoli rapini. I planted out there in December more of each of those two. They are growing out of the ground. They're about this big
Just
right
starting
now.
to sprout.
So we're going to see if I can't grow those two in the dead of winter, being January and February, then it is just going to be impossible down here for us to grow baby bok choy and broccoli rapini.
So if you have any tips on growing either one of them, please leave it in the comments so we can try it.
Yes, please do. So, I think that's about all I have to talk about, So, hopefully, this year, as you've already heard, we're actually growing in raised beds. So, we're still going to be doing stuff in our grow bags, but we've got,
We have
all
10
right.
raised beds so far.
10. There are what? Was 4 of them, 4 or 5 in production right now with stuff in it, but we have it all set up for another 5 or so that we're building next to those. So this we look forward to this spring being our first garden tour outside, even though we did a mini one of what we call the concrete garden at the other house.
Right.
But we are going to have beds and growing in ground in container beds. So hopefully, if we are to suffer with triple degree temperatures again this summer. Hopefully it'll be easier on us in raised beds versus grow bags. But anything
I
else?
just have a couple of things. We were
Yeah.
talking earlier this morning about experimenting, which is different for us because last year everything we grew was an experiment because we hadn't grown anything before. But that gave us the time to find several things that we do like, as we talked about, several things we won't grow again. And it just gave us some knowledge of what we're actually going to be doing. So I think experimenting in the garden is something that we're going to continue doing every year because there's thousands of different plants you can grow. So every year we're going to choose a few and just to see if we like them, which will make gardening fun because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, he was ready to go buy some more seeds, you know, to have some new ones to try. And I'm like, Chuck, we've got a crap load of seeds that we've already bought in anticipation for, you know, spring 2024. Plus, we have things we didn't grow last year. So we are going to be growing watermelons this year that we haven't. We've got several kinds of melons to grow. Cantaloupes, our green bean, well, different kinds of beans. We've got some in the process now, but we didn't do that back in spring, so we've got several kinds we're going to do in the spring. Okra was something else that did not grow well for us, but we're going to try again in the spring.
Well, it didn't grow well at the last house. Here, it was just too late in the season, but it was growing extremely well here.
It was growing, but it wasn't producing. So hopefully it will grow and produce this next year. And so yeah, I think that's about it. Thank y'all so much for the support, the views, the likes, the comments, the messages, all that stuff in our first year.
Thanks for the subscriptions too.
Yes, and tell your friends, subscribe. We are now, I think as of this morning, up to like 570 subscribers, which for two goofy old dudes, I always say, down in Louisiana that just
In less than a year.
ramble too much in less than a year to have the amount of subscribers we've gotten and the amount of views we've gotten. We are very honored and pleased, and we look forward to sharing life with you in 2024 and recipes and garden tips and mistakes and failures, because, you know, I'm going to let you know if I suck at something just as well as tooting my horn about how wonderful I am at something. So thanks for the support, y'all, and we love y'all, and we wish y'all a wonderful 2024 and hope your 2023 has been good too.
Hi guys.
Bye, y'all. Thanks.